What's up, guys? Let's go up here. Today I want to talk about addiction and three things that you really need to focus on. You see I'm going up into my little studio thing. Three things you need to focus on when treating addiction. All right? The first thing you've got to address is withdrawal. The second thing is dopamine. And the third is your life structure. Okay? And we're going to talk about each of these things, sorry about that, in detail. Okay? So, first, withdrawal. Now, the most common thing I treat is opiate addiction. And the most common thing we use to treat opiate addiction is buprenorphine, which is a medication that helps people through the withdrawal. So in other words, it stops the withdrawal. It blocks it, right? Well, we know it does other things too. It actually helps with addiction in other ways as well. But the main reason people feel stuck, is the withdrawal, okay? But now we know that we can put you in a detox. I can put you in a 30-day program. We can get you through the withdrawal. And what happens? People relapse. They relapse all the time after going through an inpatient program. So it's not just the withdrawal that people have to get through, okay? So what's that next step? It's the dopamine. It's that dopamine. The dopamine trigger, those things that give you pleasure. Dopamine is the pleasure chemical, okay? Now, there's other chemicals at play as well, but I just want to try to keep this simple, and I just want us to focus on that. We're going to use that term kind of as a broad term for multiple chemicals, and I know it's not very scientific, but in other words, just these chemicals in your brain, okay, that really kind of get you to do things, okay? Like, it can overwhelm you, this desire for dopamine. All right, dopamine is why we're addicted to smartphones. It's why it's like Facebook and all these other social media outlets. They use addiction and gambling techniques. Gambling. How do they know how to trigger, how to keep you? Is it just the money? No, it's a dopamine fix. People get addicted to gambling for the same reason they get addicted to drugs. It's a dopamine fix. Now, depending on your brain, depending on like your history, people are more prone to different types of addictions. And it's because of the way the dopamine is stimulated in their brain. And so their setup is just a little bit different, right? That's why not everybody who takes a pain pill becomes addicted to it, right? Not everybody gets the same dopamine release. Now, again, this is not an excuse for addiction, though. We're just mainly trying to decide, okay, what is it? What are we facing, How are we going to battle it? So we have to figure out a way through the withdrawal. The next is we have to figure out what are we going to do about the dopamine. Because remember earlier I said, look, I can put you in an inpatient program and I can taper you off and I can get you through the withdrawal. But why do people relapse? Because of dopamine. Now, they don't necessarily relapse just because they're trying to get high again. But it's because their dopamine receptors were hijacked for so long. They can't get any pleasure out of anything. They just feel depressed, fatigued, just like life is meaningless at times. And it's almost like there's a question in their head, and the only answer they can find that gives them any satisfaction to the question is whatever the source of their addiction was. Because that is where they get their dopamine. And we've got to have dopamine to be happy, okay? So we've got to address the dopamine. Now, the next thing, and this is where I'm going to lose a lot of you, is that the full-on life cycle. Like, what are your life choices? What direction are you going? What is your purpose in life? What are your value systems? Okay? Now, as you know, I do a lot of videos on religion, and I do some videos on like anti-nihilism, because I think people who feel like have this total nihilistic worldview that things are just meaningless in itself because, hey, man, we're just out in space and everything's going to, evaporate one day, or, my morals are my morals, your morals are your morals. I just think that's empty. And I think it leaves people empty. And I think that without a strong foundation of values and a way to judge your life, to make better choices and better decisions, you're just going to feel empty. And that emptiness, it can't stay empty for long. You're going to fill it with something, okay? And if you've got no value system to tell you what to fill it with, it's going to be a bad choice, more than likely. Now, obviously, not everybody's the same. So some people can be complete nihilists, yet actually have a value system, right? So in other words, their philosophy they'll say is nihilistic, but in reality it's not. It's objectively grounded in some type of virtuous system, okay? So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on all that. But my point is, these three aspects, if you want to deal with addiction, you've got to deal with all three. The withdrawal, the dopamine, and I don't even know what to call it, your life purpose. They did this study, and you've heard of the rat study, right? A long time ago, they put rats in a cage, they gave them a bunch of cocaine, right? And they found that rats who had basically nothing else to do, they would just go and they would become highly addicted to the cocaine. But if they gave them the choice of cocaine, but they also built them like this kind of nice, fun, they called it Rat Park, like this fun place for rats to play. And they still offered them cocaine as well. They weren't nearly as prone to become addicted to cocaine. But the rats whose life had no purpose, so to speak, they had no fun, nothing to do, they became highly addicted. And so you can look that up. It's called the Rat Park Study, I think, Rat Park Study. Or I don't know what it's called. But anyway, that's the gist of it. And so these three aspects are what you have to focus on. And I know I keep repeating that because it's important. Now, sometimes we use medication to treat the withdrawal. Sometimes we use medication to treat the dopamine. But you can do other things, right? You can get your dopamine balanced in your brain by doing dopamine fasting from other things, by giving up your smartphone, by cutting back on like the sugary treats or what, there's different ways you can adapt your lifestyle to actually improve how you handle sensors and inputs into your life. Because if you're constantly influxed with these kind of dopamine signals, it can just dull you out. So you're always having to get more and more and more. And so by adjusting things here in your life, it can help your life over here. Your life is a cohesive unit. And I think if people started looking at this from all these aspects, they would be better off. Now, if you don't have a purpose in life, then you need to start looking for your purpose. You need to start building a purpose. Like, you're not going to find it one day. You're not going to just like pray and have some mystical experience and all of a sudden the clouds open up and you just know exactly what to do with your life. That is not the point. And whether you believe it or not, the Bible actually says that you were created for good works. So there's your purpose. Do good in this life, Look for ways to bring goodness in other people's life to help other people. This might mean that you become a sponsor. This might mean that you start a YouTube channel to help people struggling with addiction. This might mean that you find some elderly people that are shut-ins and you go do their grocery shopping for them right now during this crisis, pandemic. Whatever it is, find some value in life and some purpose and go after it, okay? You don't have to be perfect to start that. You need to be working on all three of these aspects if you want to fully get recovered and treat your addiction and overcome your addiction. One thing that I disagree with like 12-step programs is the idea of identity, because they say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm an addict. Yes, of course you've got to understand where you're at if you want to make any choices in life to know where you're going. But constantly just telling yourself you're something if that's not who you want to be, is not helpful. Instead, tell yourself that you're somebody else. You're someone in transition. You were someone, searching for a better life for you, for your family, for your kids, for whatever, Get the value out of life, this short life we've got. Take it for what it is and get as much out of it as you can and give as much as you can. All right, guys, that's it. It's the 3 things you need to focus on to conquer addiction. Guys, I hope y'all have a great day. God bless. God love you. Peace.